Continuing our lesson on percent equation, just a reminder of some things from the first part of the lesson you talked about is that when you see the word of, usually that means you're going to multiply. When you see the word is, that usually means equals. And so literally, a lot of these problems we can actually convert into equations just by thinking about those kind of things. So on page 152, if we look at the do you understand, number 2, a waiter at a restaurant receives an $11 tip, $11 as a tip on a $47.20 bill. He usually receives tips that are 20% of the total bill. Is the tip amount what the waiter typically receives, and explain. So one way we could do this problem would be we could figure out what is 20% of the bill. So 20% of $47.20, 20%, we can move our decimal over 2 spots. And if you multiply, it would be $9.44. So $9.44 is 20%. That's what he would normally get. He actually got $11. So we could say no, he got more than 20%. Okay, and that's again an option as far as the amount of tip. 15% is one you hear a lot of times as far as leaving a tip, but again, that's up to the individual and up to how you felt your service was at the restaurant. Another option on that problem, 20%. You might remember 20% is 1/5. It's 20 over 100, which reduces down to 1/5. So if you take 1/5 of something, you could divide by 5 to figure out 1/5. So another option, it's very similar here, would be the $47.20 divided by 5, and that would also give you $9.44. One other option I'm just going to mention to you, probably not what you might have thought to do here, but you could do a proportion would be another option. So you could say, we've got $11 out of $47.20, and we're trying to find what percent that is out of 100. So this problem, solving for P, you could say the P is being divided by 100. You could multiply by 100 on both sides, and that would be 1,100 divided by $47.20. When you divide that out, it comes out to about 23.3% approximately, so we can do a little squiggly equal sign there. Okay, so that would tell us, if they specifically said what percent did they get, or if you were just curious what percent that actually ended up. We know it's more than 20%, but what is it exactly? So that would be a way that we could figure out a little bit more exactly what percent he actually did get. Look at number 4. An auto insurance company pays 12% commission to its agents for each new insurance policy they sell. How much commission does an agent make on a $1,000 policy? So before you work this problem, you could do a quick estimate, and thinking about 12%, that's kind of sort of close to 10%. 10% is 1/10, so taking 1/10 of 1,000, or you could do basically the same thing, would be 1,000 divided by 10, which would be $100. So we're expecting 12%, a little bit higher than 10%, so a little bit more than $100 we might be expecting for our answer. So basically, on this problem, we're going to try to figure out what is 12% of $1,000. 12%, we can change that to a decimal. And of means multiply. And basically multiplying by 1,000, that's going to move your decimal 3 spots to the right. So we really don't even need a calculator here. Times 10 moves it 1, times 100 moves it 2, times 1,000 moves it 3. Okay, a 1 by several zeros behind it. How many zeros you've got is how many spots you're going to move your decimal point. So that would wind up being $120, and that was pretty close to our estimate. So looks good. So we're going to look at a few problems here, workbook page 37. So let's look at number 3. Sweater normally costs $35. There's a 25% discount. What is the amount of discount and sale price of the sweater? So there's actually 2 different things they're asking us to find here, so make sure that you come up with 2 different answers. So if you want to, we can call it like part A, part B, something like that. Okay, so the first thing they're asking us is, what is the amount of the discount? So to find our discount, we're going to want to find what 25% of $35 is. And again, you could try to kind of get an idea of what answer you might be expecting before you actually work it out if you'd like. So if we work that out, 25%, we can change that to a decimal. And multiply by 35 would be $8.75. Okay, and you might be familiar, 25% is like 1/4 of something. So if you took 35 divided by 4, 35 is not divisible by 4 evenly, obviously. So if you were just getting an estimate, you might think, well, 36, that's pretty close. 36 divided by 4, that's 9. So it should be just a little less than $9. Now, what we have to remember is that we're not done with this problem. That was part A. We still have a part B. So that was the discount. So a discount, sometimes stores kind of refer to this as a savings. Okay? It's kind of an interesting concept because you're spending money but you're saving. Anyway, so the next question is, what is the sale price? So the sale price is basically looking at, this is what it costs, here's our discount, what we actually pay is the sale price. Oh, before tax. So to find that sale price, we started at $35. The discount's going to bring it down $8.75. And when you subtract that, would be $26.25. Make sure you're not paying more than the original price. If it's on sale, that'd be a ripoff. Okay, and you guys can look at this different ways. When you're actually subtracting that, there's different ways you might come up with that answer. You might think, well, in 20, if I had $8.75, if I start there, if I go up $20, that'd be $28.75, and then another $1.25 would get me to $30. So that's $21.25, and then plus the $5, $26.25. Okay, it might be different ways you can come up with it, rather than just the strict, you have to borrow and you have to do all these steps to work it out. So if we look at number 4, we actually finally now have a percent equation problem. Since this is a percent equation lesson, that might be a good idea for us to know how to do. Okay, so number 4, it says find the percent. So it says 132 is what percent of 880? So what we're going to try to do, the percent equation method says, let's try and switch this over to an equation, and then we can actually solve the equation and get our answer that way. So in the book it talks about things about parts, and like a part equals a percent times the whole. If you want to look at it that way, that's fine. Again, what I like to do is actually just literally transform this to an equation. So I got 132 is means equals. What percent? That sounds like that's what we're trying to find here. So if you want to do P for percent, you can. Sometimes another option you could do like X percent or something like that. If you want to put a percent sign next to it, you can. Just to remind yourself that you're actually finding the percent. Of means multiply, and 880 means 880. Okay? So I've literally transformed that to an equation without really worrying so much about what's my part, what's my whole. I'm just transforming it to an equation, which I don't want to say let's just blindly work through the problem, but you know, once we get our answer, I can put that answer back into the question and see if it makes sense or not. Okay? So don't just totally blindly work through it, but this is a nice way of being able to transform this to an equation. So at this point we're ready to solve. Variables being multiplied by 880, so if we divide by 880 on both sides, keeps our equation balanced and gets that variable by itself. When you divide, remember we're finding a percent. At this point, when we use the percent equation, that percent is going to be as a decimal, so it's 15/100ths. Move your decimal 2 spots to the right, that means 15%. Now again, not blindly just going and working a problem out and going on to the next one. Think about if this makes sense, if this seems reasonable. 132 is 15% of 880. Okay? So that kind of sort of seems reasonable. Just using number sense a little bit, I think should be in good shape. So if we look at number 6, Dan is watching the birds in his backyard. Of the birds he watches, 9 of them, or 45%, are sparrows. How many birds are in his backyard? Okay, so again, we might have an idea in our head, 45%, so that's a little less than half. So you might have an idea in your mind of how many birds you're expecting. Okay, so basically these offsetting commas, when it says 9 of them or 45%, you've talked about this probably in English class before, that means that those two things are the same as each other. So that tells us that 9 is the same as 45% of the sparrows. Or sorry, 45% of the birds, I should say. Okay? Just like if I say, you know, my teacher, comma, Mr. Schmidt, comma, that means your teacher is Mr. Schmidt. So in this case, 9 is the 45%. And the advantage of this is that then you could do an equation out of that if you wanted to. We could say 9 is means equals. Now this time we've been given the percent. If you're given the percent, you can just go ahead and change that to a decimal. And then of means multiply. And then the birds, whatever variable you want to use for that. I'm just going to use B for birds. Or if you want to do T for total, whatever you want to call it. Okay. Once we get that equation, it's going to be a similar setup here. So variable we can see is right next to something means they are multiplying, means we need to divide. Okay. And this is one of those situations where we're dividing by something less than 1, and so our number is actually going to get bigger. So dividing that out, we get 20. And again, we're saying now basically that 9 is 45% of 20. Seems very reasonable. A little less than half, so should be in good shape. Number 11, Kristen is promoting an upcoming play. She has two options on how she will be paid. Option A is an hourly wage of $7. Option B is a 5% commission on all money made during the play. She plans to work 2 days for 8 hours each day. And how much money will the play need to bring in for both payment options to be equivalent? So one thing we could do here, a good first step would be looking at how many hours she's working altogether. So we could do 8 times 2 or 2 times 8 or 8 plus 8 if you want. And you could see that she'd be working 16 hours altogether. And then for option A, hourly wage of $7 means she's making $7 an hour. So then for option A, we could look at it's $7 an hour and 16 hours. So we can multiply 7 times 16, and that would be $112. So $112 is for option A. And then the question is, then how much money would the play have to make, basically, that she would earn $112 that way as well. So basically, we want to figure out, we want 5% of the money made. We want that to be, so 5% of the money made is $112. That's what we're trying to get. So we could change this over using percent equation. 5% as a decimal, move your decimal 2 places to the left, would be 0.05 or 0.05. We know of means multiply. The money made, that's what we're trying to find. If you want to do M for that, you can. Is means equals, and 112. And then once we got our equation set up, you can see the variables being multiplied. So if we divide by 500 on both sides, and that would be $2,240 that the play would have to bring in for both of the options to be equivalent. So if the play makes less than that, then she would actually be better off with the hourly wage. If the play brings in more than that, she would be better off getting the commission. So it just kind of depends on the situation there. Okay, and again, there's different ways you guys could do that. You know, 5% is 112. Another option, you could say, well, you know, 5%. I know I need 20 of those to get to 100%, right? So you could say if 112 is 5%, you could do 112 times 20, and then that would get you to the same answer. So this gives you an idea of how to work with the percent equation.